The term woke originally came from African American English and meant being awake or alert to social injustices, especially around issues of race. It began as a call to stay vigilant against systemic oppression, police brutality, and discrimination. Stay woke became a phrase encouraging awareness and advocacy for marginalized communities. In recent years, this concept has moved from niche discussions into mainstream culture, politics, and business. However, in doing so, it has become a highly divisive ideology, where critics argue against its identity politics, ideological intolerance and conformity, limits to free speech, cancel culture, and symbolic activism. This film will take a critical look at the woke movement, exploring how it is undermining core values of Western civilization and why this has negative implications for democracy and cultural stability. The film, however, does not intend to demonize a movement grounded in the noble pursuit of equality and justice, but seeks to foster healthy dialogue and self-reflection. By promoting nuanced reflection, the film aims to deepen understanding and inspire viewers to question, or even move beyond, blindly adhering to predefined ideas. In human history, ideology has been both a powerful force for change and a substantial source of division. An ideology is a set of ideas, beliefs, values, or doctrines that shape how individuals or groups understand the world and guide their actions. It often serves as a framework for making sense of complex social, political, and economic issues, helping people decide how they think society should work and how they should act within it. At its best, ideology gives people a shared purpose, strengthens collective identity, and motivates positive change. At its worst, however, ideology blinds individuals to the nuances of reality, promotes intolerance, and becomes a barrier to understanding diverse perspectives. This blindness occurs when people become so entrenched in their beliefs that they dismiss or ignore information contradicting their views. When individuals are blinded by ideology, they cease to seek the truth and instead focus on defending their position at any cost. This phenomenon, which affects societies and individuals alike, stifles critical thinking, hinders social cohesion, and ultimately leads to negative consequences, both personally and collectively. Western civilization, the birthplace of democracy, has been marked by a long-standing commitment to the concept of freedom, shaping both political institutions and social norms in a way that has distinguished it from many other civilizations. The core values of Western civilization and democracy share foundational principles, which include individual rights and human dignity, rule of law, freedom and autonomy, equality and social justice, rational thought and intellectual freedom, each contributing to the structure and stability of democratic societies. As democracy emerged and evolved, especially in the West, it built upon values deeply rooted in Western philosophy, law, and culture, from ancient Greece and Rome to its developments through the Enlightenment and modern democratic systems. The West has cultivated a rich cultural legacy that has profoundly shaped societies worldwide. It has promoted social progress, stimulated economic development, and encouraged global advocacy for human rights. While challenges remain, the foundational principles of Western civilization continue to serve as a powerful force for good.
And liftoff of Discovery, hoisting harmony to the heavens.
In recent years, the woke movement has become a prominent force in shaping social, political, and cultural discourse in the West.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Rooted in a desire to address historical injustices, systemic inequalities, and marginalization, the term woke originally referred to an awareness of social issues, particularly concerning race, gender, and identity. While advocating for justice and equality is necessary and commendable, it is equally important to recognize the contributions and values of Western civilization that allow for such advocacy. Over time, what started as a movement for social justice has morphed into a highly divisive, often intolerant, and sometimes authoritarian force. The movement, at its inception, emerged from movements advocating for civil rights, gender equality, and social justice. It sought to rectify historical wrongs like slavery, segregation, and discrimination against marginalized groups. In this context, it served a constructive purpose, aiming to bring attention to injustices that had long been ignored. However, as the movement gained momentum, it expanded its scope to encompass a broader array of grievances, and in doing so, shifted from advocating for equality to enforcing a specific worldview. One of the defining characteristics of the woke movement is its focus on identity politics, which elevates personal identity such as race, gender, and sexual orientation over individual merit or universal principles. This shift has led to the fragmentation of society into competing identity groups, each vying for recognition and privilege based on perceived victimhood. It has also led to identity groups being assigned collective blame based on perceived privilege. Rather than fostering unity, this has exacerbated divisions, as individuals are increasingly defined by immutable characteristics rather than shared values or goals. Societal problems like racism, sexism, and inequality are rooted in complex historical, social, and economic structures. Reducing them to single-group blame oversimplifies these issues, which require nuanced approaches to understand and address. This can lead to ineffective solutions, focusing more on group dynamics than on systemic reform or individual accountability. Ironically, assigning collective blame based on characteristics like race, gender, or social status reinforce the very stereotypes wokeness seeks to dismantle. While identity politics can add a spotlight to issues affecting marginalized groups, it often does so at the cost of unity, open discussion, and systemic approaches to solving shared problems. Those skeptical of identity politics emphasize the importance of addressing broader, shared societal challenges in a way that recognizes diversity but doesn't prioritize identity over common goals. One of the most alarming aspects of the woke movement is its impact on free speech. Western civilization, particularly in liberal democracies, has long upheld freedom of expression as a fundamental right. This principle allows for the open exchange of ideas, which is crucial for intellectual progress, democratic governance, and social cohesion. Forgetting the sacrifices made by millions who lost their lives in the pursuit of freedom is not only a disservice to those who fought, but also a profound danger to our society and its values. The freedom we often take for granted today is built on a foundation of loss, sacrifice, and the tireless struggles of individuals who believed in a vision of a world where rights are protected, voices are heard, and where people live free from oppression. When we lose sight of this truth, we risk eroding the very principles that uphold democracy, peace, and justice. Forgetting the human cost of freedom makes us susceptible to repeating the mistakes of the past. History has shown repeatedly that societies begin to deteriorate when the freedom to express ideas, question authorities, and engage in open dialogue is curtailed. Woke culture has fostered an environment where dissenting views are often met with hostility, and where the boundaries of acceptable discourse are policed by social pressure and institutional enforcement. The rise of cancel culture is a direct result of this phenomenon. Cancel culture refers to the practice of ostracizing individuals or groups who express opinions deemed offensive or out of step with the dominant woke ideology. Whether it is a public figure being deplatformed for a controversial statement or an academic losing their job over a differing viewpoint, the chilling effect on free speech is undeniable. People are increasingly afraid to speak their minds, lest they face social or professional repercussions. This stifles the kind of robust debate and critical thinking that are essential to a healthy democracy. In addition to silencing dissent, woke culture often employs a strategy of redefining language and concepts to align with its ideological goals. Terms like racism, privilege, and oppression are reinterpreted to fit the narrative of systemic injustice, regardless of individual intent or context. This redefinition of terms undermines rational discourse by creating a situation where disagreement is often framed as moral failing rather than a difference of opinion. Woke censorship often refers to the perceived limitation or suppression of speech or content in the name of promoting social justice, inclusivity, or anti-discrimination. It's a concept typically associated with attempts to limit speech deemed offensive or insensitive on topics like race, gender, sexuality, or social justice issues. Free speech advocates argue that even if the intention behind woke censorship is to prevent harm or promote inclusivity, it may end up limiting the fundamental right to free expression. They contend that in order to preserve a healthy democracy, people should have the right to speak freely, even if their opinions are controversial, to retain a culture of open dialogue and progress through discourse, rather than risking the potential of tyranny if our rights are curtailed. Another core value of Western civilization that is under threat from the woke movement is individual liberty. Historically, Western societies have championed the idea that individuals should be free to pursue their own goals, beliefs, and aspirations, provided they do not harm others. This concept of individualism is at odds with the collectivist tendencies of woke ideology, which prioritizes group identity over personal autonomy. In the realm of education, for example, woke culture promotes the idea of equity over equality. While equality seeks to ensure that all individuals have the same opportunities regardless of their background, equity aims to achieve equal outcomes by redistributing resources and privileges based on identity. This shift from equal opportunity to enforced equality of outcome undermines the meritocratic principles that have historically driven progress and innovation in the West. Furthermore, woke culture often promotes the idea that individuals are inherently defined by their group identity, whether it be race, gender, or sexual orientation, and that their experiences and viewpoints are determined by this identity. This deterministic worldview strips people of their agency and reduces complex individuals to mere representatives of their social category. In doing so, it negates the possibility of personal growth, redemption, or the ability to transcend one's circumstances through individual effort. Western civilization has long been built on the foundations of reason, logic, and the scientific method. From the Enlightenment to the development of modern democracies, the West has emphasized the importance of evidence-based reasoning, critical thinking, and intellectual rigor. Woke culture, however, often prioritizes subjective experience and emotional narratives over objective truth. It emphasizes lived experience as a primary source of authority, suggesting that personal feelings and perceptions are inherently valid, regardless of their alignment with reality. This shift from reason to emotion undermines the intellectual rigor that is necessary for progress. Instead of engaging in constructive debate or critical analysis, woke culture often dismisses opposing viewpoints as inherently oppressive or harmful. The result is a culture that is increasingly intolerant of complexity, nuance, and ambiguity qualities that are essential for solving the complex problems facing modern societies. In academic institutions, this has led to the rise of safe spaces and trigger warnings, which, while intended to protect vulnerable students, often serve to shield individuals from ideas that challenge their worldview. The suppression of intellectual diversity in these settings not only stifles innovation, but also deprives students of the ability to engage with differing perspectives and develop the resilience needed to navigate a complex world. Woke culture has a tendency to promote oversensitivity and an identity of victimhood. In an environment where individuals are frequently categorized by their perceived social identities, there can be a shift towards seeing oneself primarily as a victim of systemic oppression. This perspective can stifle personal agency and accountability, which are crucial for resilience. The woke debate has become a polarizing force that often amplifies social tension. Proponents of the movement see it as necessary for social progress by addressing social injustices, inequalities, systemic issues, and economic disparity. Although marginalized groups are sure to gain some benefits, the movement has evolved into a force that threatens core values of Western civilization and democracy. By undermining free speech, individual liberty, and rational discourse, it risks dismantling the very principles that have allowed itself and the West to thrive. Instead of promoting a society where individuals are judged by their character and contributions, woke culture cultivates division, intolerance, and ideological conformity. The mainstreaming of the woke movement can be seen as a double-edged sword. On one side, it has fostered a greater consciousness around inequalities and inspired many to take action in support of marginalized communities. On the other side, it has led to polarization, oversensitivity, suppression of rational discourse, and the eroding of democratic freedoms. A movement's good intentions are important, yet the broader effects of its actions may be unwittingly destructive at present and potentially disastrous over time. The means of achieving progress can sometimes be just as important as the end goal itself. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Let us move forward carefully.